guys, this is your time, your webinar. If you have any questions, let us know. If they don't apply to what we're talking about then and there, that's fine. Just stay tuned towards the end of today's presentation. Sure. We'll answer them at the end. We just want to be respectful of everybody's time here today. So love this conversation. I love working with agents who specialize in the final expense field today. Before we get too deep into this, guys, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. Let me know if you are familiar with the Medicare market, if you've toyed around with the Medicare market, if you're like, that is awful, I don't want anything to do with it, I'm here to chastise you today about how you're wrong. Let me know. Put in the comments about your experience with Medicare. But I love working with final expense agents who have started to integrate final expense or integrate Medicare, because it takes a special type of elbow grease, I think.
It does. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many final expense agents have the capacity to add Medicare in a really successful way, because it's folks that are no stranger to hard work. There has never been anyone who knew how to work a lead better than a final expense agent. And like you said, the elbow grease is already there. Yeah. So that takes out half the guesswork. If you're already a successful final expense agent, not only do you have the work ethic it takes up to go above and beyond for Medicare clients, but you've got a huge built-in market too.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Let's start into the talking about why. Why somebody who's familiar with the final expense, making a decent, making maybe even a great living off of selling final expense, why would they be interested in Medicare supplement? I think first and foremost is something that's really overlooked, is that client loyalty. There is a really famous study back done in 2013. It's a LIMRA study. It's been beat. Everybody knows it. But they talk about clients who have one policy with an agent, about 30% likely to stay loyal to them. 2 policies, that jumps up to over 50%. 3, it jumps over 90%.
Absolutely.
The more I say, if a person has one policy through an agent, it's not a client.
No, it really isn't.
It's a policy holder. So talking about how it does build that client loyalty. And another thing I'll mention too is that every product an agent doesn't offer is the foot in the door for another agent.
Absolutely. Yeah. No matter what type of agent you are, you're always leaving open doors for your clients. The more of those we can close, the more secure that client is, and the more it's going to help you down the road. I know a lot of folks that are keen on final expense probably participate in carrier contests, and a huge component of those is not just your sales, but your retention. You have to have those persistency rates. And so adding Medicare, adding other products in that household can really boost your persistency and help you qualify for more contests, keep better clients, true clients, and of course, increases the bottom line overall.
For sure, important. Bottom line, big deal. Number 2 is lead generation. That's one of the things I love. I always can tell when I'm working with an agent who specializes in final expense, making that leap over. The first question they ask is lead generation. Absolutely. Very lead hungry, and I appreciate that. That's that elbow grease we're talking about. Medicare, the Medicare market, of course, there's the statistics, famous by now, 10,000 people a day turning 65. That's 10,000 people every single day needing an advisor. Medicare is I would say it's the most well-known unknown product or unknown thing. People know that they need help when they turn 65. They understand things change, but they don't know anything beyond that.
It's kind of like the Schrodinger's cat of insurance. We know there's something in the box that says Medicare on it, but we're not sure what's in there.
Right, exactly.
Most folks are too scared to open it up.
Oh, true. I hear that cat reference, and I always cringe, but it works in so many different places. I get it. So just keeping in mind, it is an amazing lead generating tool. We'll talk about that here shortly as well. What we talked about, kind of the same boat as lead generation, is referrals. I love studying demographics. I love studying generational gaps, and it's so interesting. The baby boomer demographic is actually known for 2 things. They're known for, number 1, they are the convenience demographic, regardless of everybody talking about walking uphill to school both ways in the snow. They are the convenience demographic. They're also the advisor demographic.
Absolutely.
They will research on their own, but their research isn't necessarily researching the content. It's researching the advisors, who they need to go with. So this demographic talks about the advisors. They talk about their experience, and more services you provide, the more likely you're going to receive those referrals.
Absolutely. And I think it's a way to just keep in better contact with people, you know, not just referrals from other professionals, referrals from clients, but that just continues to allow you, because of the way Medicare is structured, that more consistent contact with your current clients is just going to increase that trust, increase your referability in a product line that's already arguably more referable than final expense.
Well, final expense products, I mean, you're going to make the claim once.
And unfortunately, they're not usually around to talk about it after.
Right, exactly. If you're making a claim on final expense, it's because they're not there to actually make that claim for themselves. And so Medicare and Medicare-related products are products that people actually utilize consistently. The more utilization means the more that they're going to talk about that.
Absolutely.
And
infinite possibilities for good experiences.
Ooh, infinite possibilities for good experiences. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Last but not least, and certainly not, I mean, just for today's presentation, we could talk about Medicare all day. We do 8 to 5 every day. But the networking opportunity available for the Medicare market, again, people are actively looking for advisors. Beneficiaries are actively asking questions to pharmacists, asking questions to providers, looking towards their senior centers. They're actively out there trying to find more information. When you have professionals that are receiving those questions and not receiving answers, professionals are now looking for the advisors.
Absolutely. There are so many folks out there, whether it's the financial advisor who's got questions about IRMA penalties, or the property casualty agent who heard something sometime about people with certain Medicare supplements can get a discount on their auto insurance. There's all these questions floating around, and folks are looking for those answers, whether it's a client or someone who has potential clients. And it's just such an approachable product line.
It is.
You walk into somebody's office and say, hey, I'm a final expense agent. I want to talk to you about partnering. That's a totally different conversation than walking into a pharmacy and saying, you know, that thing that eats up 20 hours of your week from October 15th to December 7th, helping folks shop drug plans. I might have a way to help you with that. That's such a different conversation.
It's such a great point. And just the idea of I'm trying to help people stay alive is a lot more easy of a conversation than let me talk to your people about their death. It's a less, again, that's why I love working with agents who focus on final expense. They're used to the uncomfortable conversations. So adding a product that's like Medicare is really a breeze. It's a lot, in my opinion, it is an easier sale because you're not selling anything, you're advising. It's a very different mindset there. So here's what I can expect, and here's how I like to break down of like, should I enter a market, yes or no? I'm a traditional person, so I get the yellow legal pad out, and I say the pros and cons.
Down the middle.
Right down the middle, and you have to invest your resources, my brain power. Is this going to cost me money? I mean, that's something to consider too. Is it going to cost me more money to introduce this product? So really quick, let's kind of run through what we feel like is the pros and cons of adding Medicare to a final expense business.
And I think this is probably the one that we most often get asked about.
It's the biggest one.
Yeah, it is. It's the money. That's everyone's first question. What's the money look like? And I think with Medicare, that residual income is something that is just so attractive to final expense agents. You know, if you're used to selling final expense and that, you know, big upfront commission, but then the tail is pretty small in a lot of cases, whereas in the Medicare world, a lot of cases you're looking at minimum around a 6-year tail on a lot of those products, and then in some cases even lifetime commissions.
Yeah, such a good point. Now the you know, to think about that means you're working for that commission throughout the entire time, but we'll talk about that here in a second. You know, that could potentially be a con we'll get to, but I do think, again, this is business that you can actually retire off of.
Absolutely.
It's a sellable book of business. If you have something that's, you know, consistently giving you a paycheck just for keeping the business on the books, you can either retire off of the commission you're receiving, or you can retire because that book of business is worth something other than just a book of referrals.
Yep, you're building a value proposition.
The next thing that I love, a pro of the Medicare market, it's something that we've been talking about throughout today's presentation, but it's common knowledge necessity. Basically, what I mean by that is, again, people know something happens when I turn 65. I don't know how it happens. I don't know what happens. I don't know what I need to do to make it happen, but 65 is an important birthday. People are actively looking for the advisors. They don't have to convince somebody, hey, you need final expense. Here's the reasons you need final expense. It's common knowledge that people need something in additional to original Medicare.
Absolutely. And I think, for anyone who's ever dealt with property and casualty, it is in some ways similar to car insurance. It's something you kind of have to have, but rather than being heavily, commoditized and rate based, there's so much more that goes into Medicare, and there's so many great ways to really make it fit that client's needs.
Now, here's something, again, I talk about it. I have a miniature crush on final expense agents, I'll admit it, but it's because final expense agents don't fall into the pitfall that a lot of insurance or health insurance agents fall into, and that's the order taking. Absolutely. Because it doesn't require sales. It's do you want a Med Sup or a Medicare Advantage? It's an or. It's not a yes, no, it's an or. And so that has a habit of making some agents what we call order takers versus advisors, and being an order taker, it's the easy way out, but it's not the long-term success. And we'll talk about that in some additional trainings. It's not why we're here today, but just knowing that Medicare, common knowledge, it's not a sale, it's a and or situation.
Of course.
Number 3, talked about it, 10,000 people a day become eligible for Medicare, and those individuals, again, that's 10,000 new leads a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
The market's not
a month.
The market's not, quick math. The market's not slowing down. I think they say it's until about 2034, is it? Is when the last baby boomer turns 65. Yep. So there is a lot of room in this market to make a pretty penny.
Absolutely. And that idea of 2034, the end of the baby boomer generation, people aren't going to stop turning 65 after that.
No,
it's still going to happen.
It's still going to happen, and I'm really excited to see what the market's going to look like then. But I think it's safe to say, when we look at other health insurance industries, the group insurance, underage, the other individual, the Medicare industry is actually the one that is consistently not only surviving all the changes, but they're thriving and growing with these changes. So it's in addition to the amount of eligibles growing every year, the market itself is extremely stable, and it seems to be remaining that.
It's very resilient to change.
Yes.
It's something that a lot of folks say, Medicare, that stuff's been around since 1965. It's tried and true. There have been drastic changes along the way.
So true.
Every time the industry has come out of it with new solutions and new ways to present them, and agents have benefited from it as well as clients.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. This is why I bring you on here. Yeah. More than just compliance and a pretty face. Yeah. And then last but not least, a huge pro, which sounds like it could be a con, but in my opinion, it is a pro, is deadlines. What's a big sales tool? It's pressure. Pressure and urgencies. With Medicare having the deadlines between special elections, annual enrollments, initial enrollments, the turning 65 birthday in general, there's a lot of external pressure that an agent does not have to apply, that a person has to make a decision.
Certainly. And not only that, but that pressure, especially with the T65 market, is sometimes added to. They're going to start getting all the mail, all the phone calls from the carriers, from large call centers. That's going to add to the pressure and add to that desire to have someone just say, help me with this. This is a nightmare.
It is.
I need help.
Oh my gosh, I love it when I sit down with people and I'm like, what mail did you get? 3 months leading into being to your birthday. They said 3 months. Honey, let me show you what I've been getting for the last year. And it's just boxes and boxes of mail. So there is a lot of help me so I can just not worry about this anymore.
There's actually someone locally on one of our radio stations. I've been hearing their Medicare ads, and their entire slogan now is learn more at 64.
Ooh.
Actively targeting folks on their 64th birthday.
Interesting.
Won't even touch T65. They're trying to get them a year out. And if you look at some of the large players in the market, of course, United Healthcare being one of the largest players in the market for MedSup and MAPD through their partnership with AARP, they start hitting people in their 50s.
They start hitting people at 50.
10 years, 50.
So, okay, so we got to be fair. We went over of course, why would you not be in the Medicare market? Well, we're actually going to answer why the Medicare market may not be everything it's caught up to be. Number one is actually the biggest, I feel, the most complaints I get, especially from people, I would say people who are used to the upfront commissions, final expense agents, real estate agents have come into this, is that it's not a one and done sale. There's a lot more maintenance that goes to, and you're earning it with that residual income, But this is a plan that people actually use throughout the year. It's not a one and done thing. So there is going to be higher maintenance. People having questions about cards getting ordered. People having questions about how does Medicare cover this or that.
Provider issues, which pharmacy can I go to? And then just annually reviewing those policies with folks to make sure their coverage still fits. But I will say all those points of contact are points of opportunity.
100%.
Every single one of them. It's an opportunity to talk about additional products. It's an opportunity to cement that relationship and gain referrals. It's also just a good way to increase the persistency of all your product lines.
Yeah. So I mean, exactly. You mentioned it earlier. I can't remember, you put it way more beautiful than the way I'm going to word it now, but it was every contact was an opportunity for science. But what we're trying to say is that in order to gain that referral, you have to be there when the going gets tough. And again, something to keep in mind when it comes to Medicare, you're not actually submitting Medicare claims.
Yeah.
That's all done behind the scenes.
Yep.
So when the going gets tough, it's asking simple questions like, how does Medicare cover an ambulance ride? How does my coverage do this? So when the going gets tough, it's really not that tough. And if you have your contracts through senior marketing specialist, you have access to your agent resources team that answers those questions for you.
And I think the biggest thing about the maintenance side of it is with final expense, you make a sale. Within 5 minutes, you're thinking about, okay, I've got to find the next client. And with Medicare, that's not so much the issue. You're taking on an asset in that client, someone that you can service over the years, continue to earn on over the years, and just continue that relationship rather than always be looking for the next client, which means in a lot of cases, if you're still an in-home or face-to-face type of person, stretching your geographic area out, which means more windshield time, less efficiency, or hopping on the phone and trying to do phone sales, which can absolutely work. But I think there's a lot of folks out there that don't enjoy cold calling 8 hours a day.
That's me.
Yeah.
And some people. The next con to be aware of is compliance. This is go over here. Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans. I want to understand, especially for people who are in the financial planning market, compliance is a beast for that. So I understand why compliance is a dirty word. And compliance in the Medicare market, just reminder, only applies to Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans unless your state has wonky rules, looking at you, Ohio. But for everybody else, it's just Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans. Compliance is truly not as much of a concern as anybody thinks. If you're not threatening to break hips in exchange for signatures, and you're not cold calling or cold marketing Medicare Advantage and PDP, then really, Mr. Compliance Officer, you're in the clear for the most part.
Yeah, I always tell folks that compliance is something that, and I think a lot of final expense agents will relate to this, is something that is serious, but it's not scary.
I like that.
Just like final expense, that final expense is something that's very serious. People need it. There's an incredible value in having it, but it's not something that needs to be scary. Compliance is the same way. It's serious. You should take it seriously. There's incredible value in following compliance guidelines and using those as a marketing tool to show how you work compliantly. But it's not scary and it's not concerning. It's not the beast that it's made out to be.
Oh, for sure. Just be aware of scope of appointments. That's the biggest thing. You can't cross-sell financial products at a Medicare Advantage or PDP appointment, and you have to have a scope. We have a ton of training available for that.
Absolutely.
We don't have time to go over it today because that's boring. Sorry, Chalen, compliance isn't very fun. But we do have a ton of training to discuss compliance. So that's something a good partner like senior marketing specialist can work with you with. The last thing is going to seem a little counterintuitive, deadlines. Deadlines can be a con for the Medicare market.
It can. There's going to be those times where you run out of time. There's that one client you couldn't get to before the end of AEP or on that 64th day after they lost a group coverage. And there's times you're going to have to tell folks, sorry, there's nothing we can do right now. And it can cause concerns. It can cause some unfortunate out-of-pocket expenses. But the good news is you usually also get to say, well, here's what we can do.
Yeah.
And because of how complex Medicare is, there's a lot of ways to still find people help. Even if they miss the election period they think they need, there's usually another opportunity right around the corner.
So true. And again, it's really helpful to have a good partner to help you find those opportunities. It takes experience to learn and identify those opportunities. But that's why you have a great partner.
Absolutely.
Like senior marketing specialist. I'll also add with deadlines is that you'll have kind of like the retail industry, you'll have times where you might be a little slower and then times where you're just like banging your head against the wall busy. And it's just budgeting your time. Of course, we know the annual enrollment period, October 15th through December 7th. Those 8 weeks are a little intense.
They absolutely
Again, it's making sure that, and again, we can train you on how to budget your time for all 365 days of the year to where you can manage effectively and run a really solid, effective AEP.
Absolutely. And I think it just comes down to, adding this new line of business means managing time between both lines of business. And this seasonality of Medicare is going to, I think, really help you narrow in on your final expense business as well, just because it's going to kind of force your hand into, okay, October to December, fourth quarter, not going to be a lot of time for final expense.
Right,
but you know what happens first quarter? Everyone gets their new cards, they have a new plan, they've got questions. You need to check in on them and make sure that their drugs didn't cost more than they were expecting when they went to the pharmacy in January. And those are all opportunities to reach out, set that follow-up appointment, and go down your other product lines with them.
Such a good point. Such a good point. So based on this pros and cons list, I'm adding Medicare. Not only are there more pros than cons, but in a certain way, the cons actually you can utilize them for opportunities to, again, improve on that Medicare market.
Absolutely.
So here's how we get started, guys. This is what we kind of recommend step by step. We have to do a little bit of broad strokes because every agency and every situation is different. But here is how, just a general idea of how to begin your path into adding Medicare products into your portfolio. Number one is find a good partner.
Absolutely. And a good partner means a lot of things. It means making sure that you get the right contracts, which doesn't mean every carrier on the market. It just means the ones you actually need to do the business that your clients need from you. It means finding someone who can help you with training. We've talked about a lot of things that a lot of folks are probably going, not really sure about that, but that's what we're here for. We've got some great training systems, whether it's one-on-one training with your agency, utilizing the agent resources team to ask questions, or just looking through some of our pre-recorded trainings on SMS University.
Sure.
And then a lot of it is just systems and resources. Like we said earlier, leads are probably not going to be your biggest concern because you've got such a huge built-in opportunity with your current final expense book of business. But systems like Medicare Center for enrollment, quote engines, our marketing pieces, a lot of other systems and processes and resources that are going to make this more or less plug and play when it comes to integrating it into your practice.
And you said leads may not be the biggest concern. If they are a concern for somebody, maybe they're starting out in the Medicare or starting out with their final expense, considering adding Medicare to it. I would really argue that leads for the Medicare business are going to be cheaper than leads for final expense because you're going to have more of a turnaround. You're going to have a higher closing ratio, and there's a lot more opportunity for cross-selling.
Yeah, every Medicare lead is going to also be a final expense lead.
Nailed it. And the opposite's not true.
Not at all.
So such an excellent point. The next thing on here, we've mentioned it once, is to get contracted. Start small. Chalen said it a little bit ago. You don't need 50 contracts. You don't need 50 MedSup carriers and 20 Medicare Advantage carriers. You only need a couple, and you need to make sure that you're doing your research. It's not just the lowest MedSup plan. It's not just the Medicare Advantage with the lowest max amount of pocket. But again, if you're using senior marketing specialists as your partner, you have access to our agent outreach team. And what they do is that they get to know your business, your practice, your area, and team you up with a select few carriers that kind of match up to your selling style. So you don't have to do the research that's been done for you.
Absolutely.
Next is to get trained. We've said this, of course, in the past as well. Knowing Medicare is wildly important. You don't have to know the ins and outs of Medicare. I know Chalen and I have been doing Medicare and focusing on that for years. We still learn something every day.
Absolutely.
About Medicare.
learned a couple new things this morning that made me scratch my head.
Exactly.
It's the way it goes.
You're not gonna memorize it, but you need to get trained on how to incorporate it. What do clients care about? How do you present compliantly? How do you talk to individuals who are in that sweet spot of turning 65? So training, yes, there is product training, but it's also how do you approach this demographic?
The client life cycle is the biggest thing for people to get a hold of.
Mm-hmm.
It looks so much different in Medicare, the life cycle of from the minute you get that referral, that lead card, talk to one of your current clients, on through that client life cycle looks drastically different for a Medicare client
Mm-hmm.
than it does for a final expense client.
Mm-hmm. I think what we're talking about there is when you're getting trained in that is just to get the right expectations.
Sure.
Success, I truly believe that success is only measured by how well expectations are met. So that comes in that training is what should you expect based on the effort you put in. And then making sure that you are reaching out to your current book of business. Again, this is for individuals that have a final expense book of business. This probably sounds a little backwards to you because you're used to the I reach out to them. People don't shop final expense. Once they have a life insurance or a final expense product, they're not calling, Alex Trebek anymore, but in general, to talk about Colonial Penn or to talk about their final expense options. Once they have it off, it's kind of checked off their list.
Absolutely.
So reaching out to your book of business may seem a little foreign, but your book of business is your cheapest lead source.
It absolutely is, especially because, if you look at demographics for final expense policies, a lot of them are going to be a cross section of folks that are also on Medicare or eligible for Medicare and maybe even don't know it in some cases. So there's a lot of value and a lot of service you can provide by learning these products, learning these processes, and bringing that into that household. And because those plans do change every year, like you said, that proactive outreach is maybe new to some folks, but that annual review is absolutely critical in the Medicare world, and it presents such a huge opportunity.
And then don't forget, with your partner, Senior Marketing Specialist, you have access to a program called AMP, Agent Marketing Portfolio. What AMP is designed to do, it is compliant, and what you do is it can be customized with your name, agency name, phone number, contact information, logo, headshot, and it's a way for you to introduce to your current book of business via flyers, mailers, postcards that you now represent Medicare related products. And so it's really, really all you pay for is cost of printing and delivering. Senior Marketing Specialist does everything else. So
we've put in the design time, we will customize those for you, and it's just a great way, because that's the thing, you can't assume folks know what you do. I always like to use the example, my wife has worked for a bank here in Columbia for almost 4 years now.
Got it.
And about 2 years ago there was a robbery at one of their branches.
Oof, I don't like that.
No, I didn't either, but my grandma asked my wife, how are you doing? I heard there was a robbery the other day. Now my wife's a commercial loan analyst. She is not client facing. She works downtown at the main office building.
Sure.
But in my grandma's mind, if you work at a bank, you're either a teller or the bank president.
There are no other options.
Make sure your clients know what you do is the point. Don't assume that they know that you've added Medicare because you sent out that one letter saying, I now do this.
Yeah.
Constantly remind them, reach out. I would say if you can convert, and this is something I like to bring up to folks all the time, if you can convert 10% of your current final expense book of business every year to being a Medicare client, that's 10% on a dollars amount is going to mean your business has doubled in 7 years.
That's crazy. That's wild.
And there's definitely folks like Brad Herman that we mentioned earlier. You're going to see his interview later. He was able to convert about 25% of his book of business in the first year.
That's insane. Well, and you already have that trust, and it goes with this last point that we have to begin. Same thing is it's getting active on your social media. Like you talked about, just screaming it to the rooftop. Your clients are actively looking for this information. They just don't know to ask you. They don't know that you are, and they get it, like Chalen said, you send out one piece of mail, that's not enough. So making sure you're active on social media. Again, Senior Marketing Specialist has you covered. We have SMS Agent Connect. We have content that is compliant that you can use and post every single day of the week. That's information that's suitable for social media, but also lets the world know that you work with seniors.
Absolutely. Staying compliant is of course important, but we don't want you to ever feel like that hinders your ability to get in front of people, because it absolutely does not. It just provides an incredible opportunity to do things the right way and to showcase that to folks. Be proud of how you handle your business and use that as a selling point.
I think compliance is a great, I would say a bridge, I guess you could say, from keeping your competition at bay. Because people hear that, they get nervous, they get scared.
Sure.
People who actively learn about it and do business the correct way have a lot of success using compliance to increase their business. People that are either maybe more shady, they either don't stay in this industry very long, or individuals who are too scared to do the research don't get into the beginning.
Absolutely. It's definitely probably one of the largest barriers to entry.
Yeah.
Is that compliance aspect. If it's something you're not used to. And I would encourage you, if you're on right now and that's a major concern of yours, pop it in the chat. I just want to see how many people that is a concern for. I think it'll be, it's pretty high.
We talk about it a lot with people who are adding Medicare, because it is, I guess, the number one thing that I hear is like, well, what about that? What about compliance? I know I can't market this. Well, not true.
Absolutely.
Last but not least, track your progress, guys. You need to make sure that at the end of the day, you are making money on adding Medicare into your book of business. It's not something that's costing you money, which I can't imagine why it would cost you money. But I've been wrong before. I say in my years, I've been doing this since 2013. I've not seen somebody lose money by adding Medicare into their book of business.
Absolutely. If you're putting half the effort into it that you do into your final expense, you'll be wildly successful. But yeah, looking at things like profitability, conversion rate, bringing those policy holders up to client status in a timely manner is drastically going to affect how successful and how profitable this is for you. And there's some really easy ways to track that we can help with.
For sure. All right, guys, here we are at the end of today's of mine and Chalen's presentation. Love this topic. Love interacting with agents who are used to the final expense market. Of course, if you have questions, now is the time. However, if you're a little shy, feel free to give us a call, 1-800-689-2800. Also, check out who we are. Go to smsteam.net. Poke around on there. In order to get to the really good stuff, you do have to have a contract with senior marketing specialists to gain access to that. But check us out, or once you're there, click on the training tab, and there's a ton of trainings about how to integrate Medicare one-on-one, cross-selling opportunities, how to use a fact finder, things like that.
And I don't think we mentioned it earlier, but if you are looking at adding Medicare and this is your first time really taking a serious look at it, next week is our quarterly virtual new agent school. And it's going to be the perfect thing for you to hop on to learn the ins and outs of Medicare and how to get started.
And again, that new agent school is Monday through Friday. It's spread out throughout the entire week. It's about an hour to an hour and a half a day, but each day we break down a different topic. Monday is Medicare 101, Tuesday is products, Wednesday is marketing Medicare, Thursday is sales, and then Friday is retention. So it gives you a little bit of bite each day.
Absolutely.
So Clayton said, he says, well, he is a little shy, but he lost track on the tracking your progress part. Again, senior marketing specialist does have tools and resources. Senior marketing specialists do. It is because it's an individual. I mean, you're not grammar, you're compliance. Anyways, we here at Senior Marketing Specialists have tools and resources.
We know some things.
We know a few things, yes, that we can share with you all about how to track your client acquisition costs, your profit per presentation, how much are your leads actually costing you? Are you making a profit when you purchase leads? Again, because I will fight until I'm blue in the face about this. Medicare related or health insurance leads ultimately are cheaper than final expense.
Just between closing ratio, the number of folks, I used to be an agent, and I can't tell you that. And this is, back in the day, I knocked on a lot of doors, and I would get a lead, I would call them, set the appointment, and they were gung ho, they needed life insurance, and I pull up to the single wide trailer, and as I'm knocking on the door, I noticed that big sticker that says no smoking, oxygen in use.
Yeah.
And
it kind of just
that'll put a damper on your day. It's not the end of the world by any means, but it definitely changes the appointment a little bit. And I think that's the biggest thing to remember with Medicare is in a lot of cases that's not as big a concern. And that, like you said, not only is that Medicare lead going to be cheaper from a conversion and profitability standpoint, but it's going to open the door to all those other opportunities. Not to mention increasing drastically your client lifetime value.
Oh, for sure. Like they said, an average Medicare supplement policy is on the books for 5 years. United Healthcare is actually 7 years. Medicare Advantage is around 4.5. So, so though it is a lot more, we talk about a higher maintenance book of business, it's much more profitable in the long run as well, and worth the time and worth the effort.
Yeah. If you could call on your final expense clients 2 more times a year than you do right now and get paid that initial commission again every year, you'd probably do it.
Oh, for sure.
And that's pretty much what we're talking
about. If they don't do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, give me your book of business. I'll take care of it. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Perfect, guys. So we don't have any more questions. Again, look for the post email. We'll have that coming out here in the next couple of days. You will be receiving a call from our outreach team. I know Clayton from Senior Marketing Specialist, and I think a couple other individuals on that team will be reaching out to people, basically just seeing if you have any questions, or if you want to do a portfolio review to make sure that you have all the right carriers based on your demographic, based on the area, based on your sales styles. I'm more than happy. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
To have that call. So any final thoughts, Chalen?
No, I think if last year taught us anything, it is the time to be diverse in your product offerings. And it's the time to look for skill sets that other people don't have.
For sure.
And this is a really good one to add on.
I love it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next week for New Agent School, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks again, guys.
See ya.